Greetings and welcome to the Astronomy Picture of the Day podcast. Today's picture for October 2nd of 2025 is titled Pluto at Night. So what do we see here? Well, here we see an image of the dwarf planet known as Pluto, and it is one of the most distant objects to have been explored by spacecraft, and that was by the New Horizons spacecraft nearly a decade ago, or actually a little over a decade ago now that flyby occurred. And that is the only way we can get a picture of something like Pluto at nighttime, because it requires flying out past Pluto and then looking back toward the sun. So we're seeing the haze around Pluto is the atmosphere. Now Pluto does have a very thin, tenuous atmosphere around it, much of which is made up of nitrogen, like our own atmosphere, but at the temperatures out here, some of that nitrogen actually freezes. So a lot of what we see on the surface is also nitrogen, as well as other ices that have frozen out of the atmosphere. Now, as Pluto is in an elliptical orbit and moving more distant, farther away from the sun, the atmosphere will start to freeze more and more. Eventually, most of the atmosphere will be frozen to the surface until hundreds of years from now, Pluto comes back in closer again and warms up, and it will then again have an atmosphere. So one of the things with getting New Horizons out there was while Pluto was still close enough to the sun to be able to study its atmosphere and to see the effects that had. Now, toward the top of the image, you can see a little bit of the surface of Pluto. This was taken only about 15 minutes after the closest approach to Pluto. So it had just passed. It was still relatively close to Pluto when the image was taken, and you see a little tiny bit of the illuminated side, a thin crescent at the very top there. That is actually a portion of Pluto itself. Now, of course, we've seen far more images of Pluto over the last decade that are much closer and show us the detail and some of the surprises that we got when we actually got to look at this very distant object. And that's important to consider because we can't see Pluto from Earth. Even the most powerful telescopes cannot pick up the surface features. And therefore we can see it when we actually travel out there, when we take nearly a decade to get out to Pluto and spend that very short amount of time flying by it and collecting all of those images that astronomers have now been studying for a decade to help us learn more about this object. Now, that's important because over the last 20 years or so, we found a lot more objects out there in what is called the Kuiper Belt out beyond Neptune. Pluto is one of the largest of those objects, but there are several others that are comparable in size, as well as a host of smaller objects that are out there. So there is an entire belt of objects out there beyond Neptune. And studying one of the most prominent ones of those, Pluto, helps us to better understand the rest of them as well. So that was our picture of the day for October 2nd of 2025. It was titled Pluto at Night. We'll be back again tomorrow for the next picture, previewed to be Pandora's Cluster. So we'll see what that is about tomorrow. And until then, have a great day, everyone. And I will see you in class.